We all have a story of how we become involved in junior mining. So after many years in the corporate mining world, I boldly stepped into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and therefore junior mining. It's very tough to be a small operator, or to be small in a country of big business, big government, and big labor. Throughout our economy, the dire state of the small business segment of our various sectors of our economy is, in my view, why we do fail to achieve inclusive growth that creates jobs. So I'm no captain of industry. We've got a couple of them here. But as the holder of prospecting permits, an investor in a small coal mine, and a co-owner of a manganese refinery, I stand here like so many of you in this audience, trying to survive against all odds. Nearly a year on from the publication of the revamped mining charter and the cautious optimism that followed the appointment of the new Minister of Mine, the question that is most on people's mind is, what, if anything, has changed? This is particularly relevant to the junior mining sector, which is badly in need of a policy framework that will kickstart activity in the sector. The prevailing sentiment seems to be that while the charter is a vast improvement on the previous iteration, it is more tailored to large mining houses and doesn't offer the junior sector or potential investors any incentives to engage in prospecting and exploration. What junior miners badly need, apart from an appropriate policy framework and incentives to engage in exploration, is of course access to funds. And as always, we will be bringing investors and junior miners together over the 2 days in various formal and informal ways to discuss investors' attitudes to junior miners and what they are looking for. It's like visiting a casino. Exploration. Scary risk. Some would say silly to even take this, but boy oh boy, we all dream of striking gold. But will we own it if we discover it? If the state now owns all the mineral rights, as it does, whose responsibility is it to incentivize the exploration thereof? In most countries, the level of incentives is directly correlated to the vibrancy of its exploration sector. So important, let's not move the goalposts mid-game. You can't, as and when you get to discover something, find that life is different. Exploration hasn't done well in South Africa. When we rank ourselves against our African peers, you can see how after our sort of natural right to be the top destination for exploration for 100 years, from about 2910, this has started to change. As a country, as a destination, we have to say there are 5 African countries who are attracting investment dollars that we aren't attracting. And why is that? If you're one of the 1 in 1,000 guys who've made it through prospecting, you now need to develop a mine. Now suddenly, typically, you need hundreds of millions of rands of other people's money. You need to promise them decent returns. 20 years of regulatory certainty is now an absolute must. Nothing destroys value more than the time to achieve all the regulatory frameworks. I mean, time truly is a killer. Please just make these processes efficient. We once had the world's most progressive tax regime. Progressive, and you could pay up to 68% tax. It was called the formula tax. I would argue that we are still reaping some of the benefits of that 40 years on. Now, we all dream about owning a mine, especially one that is so great that Anglo or South 32 wants to buy it. Well, there are 2 problems with that fantasy. Firstly, by now, the promoters and the early providers of the capital stand to make far less than 10% of the value that has been created by that mine. I would argue rightly so, because other stakeholders are important. But of course, the other stakeholders have taken completely different risks in this sort of journey. The second part of this fantasy, which is really so wrong, is the Anglos and the South 32s of the world are actually selling their mines in South Africa. And we really, I mean, they're not buying. And we, as a country, we should really ask ourselves why. When we talk junior mining, we talk lots of people. We urge you, Minister, to think small first. Be bold. Remove some red tape. Make it easy and transparent to obtain a prospecting permit. Apply the use it or lose it principle. That should release thousands of prospecting areas. All of our prospecting areas have been in existence for more than the 7 years it could have been. And accept the responsibility that as the custodian of the mineral wealth of the country, it is your responsibility to incentivize the limited funding available in the world to think about South Africa as a possible destination. Minister Mantas, if we get this right this time, we will have world-class discoveries within the next 5 years. We will be building mines within the next 10 years. And mining will be a vibrant industry, the vibrant industry our nation deserves in 15 years from now. This is unfortunately the time horizon we are talking about.
There's no exploration. We are on a road, downward road. If there's exploration, we'll be growing. I think it is a sector described by a man that I respect most called David Allen. He described it as almost everyone I encounter these days feels he or she has too much to handle and not enough time to get it all done. That is a description of a junior miner, you see, is that you have just too much to handle. Exploration, this side, funding, this, but there's not enough time to get it done. And it captures as well the call by President Matamela, Cyril Ramaphosa, to renew our efforts to grow South Africa together. Now, growing South Africa together is an admission on our part. I must explain this thing, that the government on its own cannot do anything. You, on your own, you cannot do much. Therefore, if we want to make a difference, we must work together. Whether you irritate me, I have no license to walk away from you. Whether I don't like what you are doing, I can't walk away from you. The same applies to you. If we walk away from each other, there's nothing that is going to happen. If we are patient with one another, we extend our hands to reach out for each other, we'll do much better for the country. Mining is a tradable sector. It's one sector where you trade. And in our view is that it should continue to strive for bigger contribution to the GDP. One thing that I always discuss in the department, they are getting tired of me because I say it is not about what you do every day. To go to work, to do this, to do this. That's not the measure. That's a blunt tool of measurement. The measurement of the sector, that includes the department, it is contribution to the GDP, whether it is contributing to the economic growth, whether it is contributing to job creation. If we're failing those tests, we can as well describe ourselves in many words, but they will be empty words. Mining has always been a lead sector. You know, I'm from a daily khutla of the ANC. That is the governing party. So I'm not ashamed of saying I'm from a khutla of the ANC. And I was saying to DG, if we're in a working democracy, on the lead to the elections, every bureaucrat should prepare a program that talks to the manifesto of the top three parties. When one wins, they pull that, they shred the two. Now, they shred the two. They work with this because that is the program for the 5 years. Now, in that Lekgotla, one of the things I discovered last year, there was hardly mention of mining. Bernard, I can say that unashamedly. In that Lekgotla, nobody talked about mining. Mining is a problem, that's it. At least this time, it was mentioned regularly, but it still lagged behind agriculture, it lagged behind tourism, it lagged behind manufacturing, but it was mentioned. But it was coupled with mineral beneficiation. When we decoded that, we said, at least we're at the entry point of contesting the space as a sector that needs attention of the state. So it's up to all of us to contest that space by being there. When we drafted the charter, there's one valuable thing that happened there, is that dialogue was started. We began to talk to one another as partners in the sector. That dialogue produced an implementable mining charter involving all stakeholders in the sector. And I'm arguing that it is the old big mining companies that are still suspect of the charter. The first mining company that has implemented the post-mining Charter 3 provisions, where we had the first 5% given to communities and workers, is in this room. It's here. Okay. Now, that told me, Ogote, the junior miners are going to make things happen if we talk to them and we talk among ourselves. Because if we don't, we can want everything to go one way and collapse everything else. But the pains of engaging ourselves in building a country means that all of us must make certain compromises and sacrifices. Therefore, when we drafted that, we were rewarded by the Fraser Institute by jumping 25 steps in recognition of policy and regulatory certainty. We jumped from 81 to 56. It's not us who did that, it is the Fraser Institute, it's an international body. And on investment attractiveness, we jumped 5 steps. That charter, if you read it properly, is much more friendly to junior miners. You know that the provision on exploration, where we decided, say, don't put empowerment as a requirement for exploration, was a decision that was properly thought out, and we said, because when you're doing exploration, you're looking for a mineral. Why do you force people to get empowerment partners when they're exploring? And we removed that in the charter. And that was an attempt to accelerate and step up exploration. That's why it is important that we should upscale exploration activities and create the blood flow and the life of the industry. We must continue to make new discoveries. We must consciously replace the production that is lost from depletion of the old sectors. Gold is in decline. It will continue to be in decline unless somebody try to do exploration to the east of the Freddy Dome. Nobody have done it, but we're convinced with our discussion with the Council for Geoscience that somebody must do exploration to the east of the Freddy Dome. There is likelihood that you'll find massive gold deposits there. Secondly, we must be quite happy that there is a big number of small mineral groups that are playing equally important role. For example, the demand for new minerals like vanadium, copper, zinc, lead, among others, is on the growth. Cobalt, you can list all of them. It's going up. And we must appreciate that because it helps us appreciate the fact that traditional South African mining, which equated mining to gold mining, must change. because mining in South Africa is not gold mining. It's mining of the various products that we're having, various minerals that we're having. For junior miners, one of the ways of growing is pulling together resources, because when you pull your resources together, you are actively building your competitive advantage. Success in business is about developing and sustaining your competitive advantage in your target market. Now, this is a tradition that black business in the main must develop and appreciate, that bigger entities are more sustainable, not because of size, but because of their ability to benefit from the economies of scales. When you pull two partners together, you pull two small entities together, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. If you do it properly, it's 1 + 1 = 3, because you get another one from synergy.